Hello, my name is Carl. Thanks for watching. I'm here with Joey Thurmond, and this is the maiden voyage inaugural podcast of the Men of Law podcast. And Men of Law is a movie that I produced and directed, and I acted in, and it deals with the subject of human trafficking. And so this podcast is designed to ask questions, to learn about the subject of human trafficking, because if we don't know about it, we can't stop it. And to help me towards that end is Joey Thurmond. He's an actor in the movie. He does a fantastic job. He auditioned alongside many other good actors in the role. All of the actors were good who auditioned for the part that he plays. But Joey won the role and did a great job. And Joey has a story to tell us on this topic. Hello, Joey. Welcome.
Hi, how are you, Carl?
I'm good.
Thank you for letting me be here. I am honored, truly honored to be here for the opportunity to be on the episode, but especially for it to be the very first episode and the one right out of the box. Man, what a fun movie to shoot! It was fantastic. You know it was so cool to be on set with everybody that was there, and it was really awesome to know that everyone on set had such a passion for telling that story, and you could tell uh, that everyone there, it resonated with everyone about getting the word out about what this movie really meant. It was more than just making the movie. You could tell it was more than just making the movie. It was about trying to get the awareness of what's going on, sometimes literally right next door.
Well, definitely. I'm in Texas, obviously a border state with Mexico. So there's a lot of illegal trafficking of human beings for various purposes across the border. But there's all kinds of ramifications and aspects of the subject that I'm not an expert. I don't know everything about it. Um, but I think through movies, through entertainment, we can um, tell people about it, this a serious issue in kind of an entertaining way. So at least it perks people's attention.
Right, absolutely, and I think that it's a really good point to make is like I live in Atlanta, Georgia, the new Hollywood, if you will. But this is just because this a lot of times when we hear trafficking, whether it's drugs or whether it's human trafficking or whatever it may be, we tend to think that, well, I don't live in a border state. I live in a breadbasket state of America, or I live in the Northwest or the Northeast. It doesn't affect me here, which is absolutely not the truth. Human trafficking is happening in every single state in the United States. It's literally happening next door. And to raise the awareness of that is a tremendous job, and one that deserves tremendous accolades for somebody like you to have written a story, and put this out there as an independent filmmaker to try to raise the awareness, to help these folks that truly do need the help, because it's not a lot of times we think that human trafficking is people that are being brought across borders or being brought across in ships and things like that, and that's not necessarily the case in a lot of different ways. So I would encourage our listeners to not necessarily think of human trafficking as the the shipping, because a lot of times we think of that as shipping persons. When we hear the word trafficking, we think of it as shipping or transporting goods or people. um, I would encourage them to think of it as usage or slavery, because that's in essence what it really is. And it doesn't have to be an alien, it doesn't have to be a foreign person that's being trafficked. A lot of people that are being trafficked are citizens of the countries that they're being trafficked in. It can be interstate traffic, it could be intrastate traffic. It could be someone that's being trafficked from the county next door, or from the city next door, or the small town next door. A lot of them are runaways. A lot of them are kidnapping victims and things like that. So it's easy to think when we hear the word trafficking, human trafficking, or drug trafficking, things like that, we tend to think, well, I'm not in a border state, so it doesn't apply to me. And it's just not true. Especially not today, not with the way that transit is not today. I mean, we can convey ourselves in ways like never before. Used to it would take weeks to be across the country by train or whatever it is, and now we can get from one end of the country to the other in just a matter of a few hours. And the same is said with people and products.
Mhm. It really is happening next door. A few years ago in Dallas, there was a man who brought his teenage daughter to the Mavericks game, the Mavericks basketball team, and she got up to go to the restroom and didn't come back.
Mhm.
And the father's like, what's going on? Where is
Yep.
she? And she
Yep.
had been kidnapped right there at a professional NBA basketball game.
That's
If it
right.
can happen there where there's police around, there's private security, it can happen anywhere.
That's right.
And the
Absolutely.
girl was eventually taken to Oklahoma, where
Mhm.
the Oklahoma PD and I think it was a private charity group got
Mhm.
involved, and they did rescue her, thankfully.
Yeah. Yeah, and I want to speak out on this as well because I am a Native American, and that has been a huge problem with natives is the trafficking of uh, Native Americans because um, there's a lot of instances where they would go onto the reservations and kidnap the native kids and steal them away and use them in trafficking as well. That's a huge problem. It's a problem that literally is happening. It's Americans trafficking Americans, and there are so many people involved. There's so many people involved so many times. These teams that are out there are it seldom are these people that are confiscating, or I don't want to say confiscating, that are kidnapping these kids or kidnapping adults. That's another thing that we tend to think that it's children. It's not just children. There are a lot of young men and young women that are being, and I say young, I'm talking, up to 30, 35, 40 years old that are being taken, that are being kidnapped and used in human trafficking. And that is we don't even think that we're like that sounds so inconceivable to us. um but there are so many people that are involved in these operations. I mean, I don't know any other way to say it because there will be bait people. There'll be instances where a lady needs help with her car, and another lady comes up to help her with her car, whatever it is, and all of a sudden, this lady she was bait to get another lady over, and a van pulls up. They kidnap the lady that's there to help, and then everybody's gone, and things like that. And it's crazy to think that there's that many people involved and it still happens, and everybody's keeping their mouth shut. um it's truly, not to go into a whole different discussion, but it's truly a disease of the heart, of the human heart. you know I've never understood, and I never will be able to understand how one man can think that he would be able to own or possess another man. But this is the world that we live in, and the world that we live in is, it's all about me, me, me right now with a lot of people. And that includes, if that includes buying and selling a human being, so be it. And we don't want to see that ugly, we don't want to see that ugliness a lot of times, but it literally a lot of times is right next door.
Now, you said something that completely blew me away that I didn't realize is that these teams of kidnappers, not just kid, but adult nappers, I guess, go into Indian reservations and
Yes.
capture people. I was
Yes.
totally not aware of that.
Yeah, absolutely. So think of this: anything that you would think that would be sacred or safe, scratch it off the board, because anything that you would think that would be sacred or safe, they look at that like it's an easy target. They look at that as somewhere that you would have your guard down. That's why somewhere like the NBA game or somewhere that's a family event, maybe a family show that you maybe took, the kids to. Um, Places like that, places that you would go, that you would normally deem safe, schools, churches, parks, playgrounds, things like that. That's places where you're letting your guard down. Those are places that they see as, places that would be easier picked than places like airports, places where you probably kind of have your guard up. You're kind of watching other people.
Mhm.
Yeah,
And you
absolutely.
could throw in their parking lots,
Yes,
in
yes,
garage.
yes. And there's all, I mean, when I say all kinds of things, what's one of the things that I was taught. So as you know, but we haven't discussed this yet. I'm a retired police officer from the Atlanta area. We haven't discussed that on the podcast yet. But one of a couple of the last cases that I done involved human trafficking. And one of the things that I was taught that I learned as an investigator was almost anything that you can think of as that for a trafficker, any kind of way that you could think of trafficking something, it's already being done. Somebody else is already thinking that. Somebody else is already doing that. So that completely opens the whole spectrum up. There's nothing that's don't think that anything is sacred. Don't think that anything is off the board. So when you open your mind up like that, it's easy to get in the mindset that everybody's bad, that everybody's the bad guy, that everybody should be suspect, things like that. When in truth, it's not. The For the most part, people are good. For the most part, people are good, and we're talking a small percentage of people that are those people that, and sometimes they're dealing through some of the worst times of their lives. But what's a good way of saying this? You have to be vigilant. Just because someone else is going through the worst part of their lives, it's not a permission slip for you to go through it with them. It's not a permission slip for you to allow them to suck you into that.
Now, you were with the Atlanta Police Department.
I was a police officer in all around Atlanta. I worked actually as I worked for a task force that was for a lot of different agencies within the state of Georgia.
Okay. So what was your title? Was it detective? Was it investigator?
It depended on where I was at, but yes, I was in some places I would be called a sheriff's deputy, some places I would be called a police officer, an investigator. I think that the easiest title would be probably police officer investigator.
Okay. And could you describe one of those trafficking cases that you were on?
Sure. For one in particular, when we so I'll describe the second to, well, this was a case that was my second to last human trafficking case. It involved a U-Haul truck, and what basically had happened was these folks had been trafficked they had come across the border in Brownsville, Texas, and they had been placed into the back of a U-Haul truck south of the border, from as best as we could understand, south of the border, and transported to Atlanta. And there was estimated to be in the 80 range of people that were in the back of the truck. So one of the things that I want to explain is the average person doesn't know this. Um, the people that are paying to, for example, these were illegal citizens, these were illegals that were coming into the country, so they're paying the coyotes are the ones that are smuggling them across the border. That's what the smugglers are called. They're called coyotes. So they're paying the smugglers to get them across the border, and that can range in fees from, whatever they set the price. So they get them in the truck. They pay the smugglers to get in the truck. They get them across the border. Now, in addition, excuse me, most of the time, in addition to that, the family that is already in America is also paying the smuggler to get the person into the country. They will smuggle them into the country. So the smuggler's getting paid from two people. Now, a lot of times the deal is that when I get them into the country, there's still a debt to be paid once they're here, and that debt may involve servitude in some type of way. A lot of times for the young ladies, it involves prostitution, or employment in the sex trades in some kind of way, for a year, 2 years, whatever it may be. For the young men, it may be construction. It may also be in the sex trades. It may be whatever. But there's going to be some type of servitude. There's additional payment to be made. So they pay before, that their family's paying that's here. Then when they get here, there's still payment to be made, and then hopefully that works out in a positive light, and then they're able to be released. A lot of times that doesn't happen. So a lot of times, there'll be payment. Then when they get here, once the servitude starts, it doesn't, that never ends. And then once the person is used up, if you will, then whatever is whatever. But this particular case, I know that there was one body that was still in the truck. There was one victim that had died on the way in transport between Texas and Atlanta. And then the very last case that I was involved in, there was I can't remember how many were in the truck, but they had stopped one time between Texas and Atlanta, and there was so many in the truck that they had to take turns sitting down. So they had to stand up the whole time, and they had a bucket is what they used to go to the bathroom, and then they stopped one time and they would open the back door enough to throw a few sacks of hamburgers in and close the door and lock it. And there was they said that before they got to Atlanta, that they stopped and threw the dead ones out on the side of the highway and then came on to Atlanta. So yeah, and again, we're talking about human beings, and this is hard to sit and hear. It's hard to sit and say that one man could treat another man this way, but it truly happens. I've been there. I've seen it. I've walked in these houses and saw the kids and saw the girls chained to the beds that couldn't leave. I mean, this is their life. I've made the cases where the kids were, the males were forced to go and sell drugs, and the girls were forced to stay in the house as prostitutes. And it it's hard to believe that a human being could treat another human being like that. If and then it's hard to sit and watch sometimes the amazing pity, that a judge and jury could have on the perpetrators of such crimes. Believe it or not, it's mind blowing. It's mind blowing to think that sometimes um, a human being can treat another human being in such a way, but yet if that human being treated an animal in the same way, the sentence would be way more. I mean, it's like we really not life is life, but it's sometimes we absolutely have to step back and reevaluate. But it's easy to sit here and ramble on, but to say the number one thing that I want to make sure that we get across is that we have to be vigilant as citizens of our country, as human beings. We have to be vigilant. We have to be paying attention. And if something just doesn't feel right, there's a reason that it doesn't feel right. There's a reason that something is resonating within our heart, that this just doesn't feel right. That child looked at me in a certain way that just didn't feel right. You know, what was it? And here's the thing. I would a whole lot rather, as a police officer, I would a whole lot rather someone call me and apologize and feel like they were wasting my time, because believe it or not, people do that. Folks that don't call the police all the time, I've had them call me and be like, I'm really sorry. I feel like I'm wasting your time, but this just didn't seem right. And they would tell me something, and then when go and investigate it or whatever, and it may not be anything, but and they would just apologize excessively, and I'm like, hey, it's okay, you done the right thing. In your heart you thought that there was something that could be wrong, and in your heart you done the right thing. I would a whole lot rather that person apologize for doing something that could have saved a life than not said anything, and that been the only opportunity that that child or that adult or that person had to try to get help. So I want to say all of this, and I hope that this is what our viewers get from this interview, other than you really need to watch Men of Law, is if you see something that's just not right, it's probably not. If you're getting red flags and you feel like it's just not right in your heart, it's okay. It's okay to pick up the phone and make a phone call and say, hey, I saw something that just didn't feel right. I and explain what you think didn't feel right. Hopefully that investigator or that person that you're talking to has been trained in such a way that they can ask you the right questions, and it will help you articulate what didn't feel just right. And because that's one of the things that we're training our police in, and that's one of the things that we're training our ICE officials in, and we're training our border patrol in, and we're training our investigators in, is to be able to ask the right questions to help people articulate those things that just don't feel right. And so I want to really make that point, that it's okay to make those calls. It's okay to make those calls. If you feel like something's not just right, make a call. Stop by the local police department. Stop by the local sheriff's office. Say, hey, I'm not sure what it is, but this is what I saw. This is why I feel like it's not right. It's okay. Do that. Make your world better. You live where you live. Make it better. If you can, make it better.
That sounds to me like the vigilance that you're talking about is to be vigilant, pay attention, live your life. But if you see or hear something that doesn't strike you as quite right, and those of us who just live our lives, law-abiding citizens doing our thing, every now and then, at some point, you're going to come across somebody who's really troubled,
Hmm.
somebody who's terrified or scared, but isn't going to tell you or isn't going to say
Hmm.
it. But like you said, the child looked at you in such a way, it's like, whoa, what is that?
Yeah.
So I'm glad that you said that.
Yeah, yeah, and there's things that that we're teaching in middle schools and teaching in elementary schools now. Hand signs and things that know those signs. If you see a kid and you see a kid behind his back and he's making hand signs, and it looks weird, there's a reason that he's being taught those things, because or if he's watching the adult that he's with and he's making hand signs or something like that, that's called flagging. He's trying to flag attention. Pay attention to those things. It's okay. It's all right. Let somebody know. It's okay. If it was your child, God forbid, if it was your child, you would want someone to know. You'd want somebody to call and make that phone call. So yeah. And that's another thing that this movie is fantastic about. I love the story of this movie is one that he his his daughter is not it's not the baby. It's not the little girl, the little small girl on the playground that goes missing. You know, she's a young woman, and and then he tries to get help. He tries to get the help that he needs, and then come to find out, there's a lot of things that are in this movie that are so um, correct about human trafficking. There's so many things that are so correct, and I think that it's really going to be very striking to a lot of people. It's going to be very eye opening to a lot of people when they see that, and the fact that, and I don't know if this is going to even be in the film or not, um, but I think that it would be really nice to have something that says, what you're seeing, a large portion of what you're seeing is correct. This is real. These things happen. These things happen every single day in this country. Pay attention, learn. So
Yeah, yeah, that case, which I learned about after we shot the movie, or maybe it was after we wrote the script when we were in pre-production. It was very similar because the father, this was in Dallas, for whatever reason, he didn't get the help that he thought he should have gotten from the Dallas PD.
mm,
I'm not here to bash any police department.
right,
That's what he encountered, and then engaged with a private human trafficking advocacy group. And then eventually they found the child, who was a teenager, in Oklahoma in some motel, some cheap motel.
yeah,
So that kind of powered, and that story goes on and on. It
it
happens
does.
all the
It
time.
does. It truly does. And it's not about the initial response, because I'm not going to deal with that, because I'm just if he didn't get the if somebody didn't handle the case properly, shame on them. I'm going to say it just like that. We're on the same team. If I'm not bashing any departments or anything like that, but if somebody drops the ball and they didn't handle the case appropriately, shame on them. They swore that they would do that to the best of their abilities, and if they didn't, shame on them. They should have. Now, on the other side of that, it's a crying shame that we don't have the resources funded by, instead of it having to be a private advocacy group. It's a shame that we don't have the resources that we know that we can have guys out there going to make sure that that happens, and it not have to be those private groups that pick up the slack. But thank God for them.
Yeah, looking at other people I can talk to for the podcast, who I can interview, there's several human trafficking advocacy, charities for victims or helping recover people who are missing.
Yeah,
And it's like there's a gap. There's a huge need that's
yeah,
not being filled by, official sources that we know of
yeah,
in rescuing people.
yeah, yeah. It definitely, and a lot of that is caseload. Sadly, a lot of that is caseload. You know, there 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 truly are only so many hours in the day, and there truly are only so many cases that you or I could work in a day.
Mm.
That's just, I mean, the ratios are there. That's just the way it is, and that's what that reiterates my point, that it's sad that we don't have the resources that, you know that when that case comes in, that we're able to say, hey, you know what, Carl, Joey, this is your case. Go find this kid. Go find this person. Let's get them back home. Let's go to work. And you or I, neither one, have to worry about any other case until that kid or that husband or that mom or whoever it is back home. And I mean, because that's what you want as a parent. That's what I would want.
Mm-hmm. And that's kind of the point of everything we're saying and the movie is
Mhm.
everyone keep an eye out, listen,
Yeah,
pay attention.
because in all honesty, guys, in all honesty, The authorities need the good guys. We see them as the good guys because they get up every day and they put on the uniform and they put on the badge. We know they're the good guys, but there are other good guys that are walking around. We're the good guys as well. The good citizens that get up and work hard every day and that do the things that they're supposed to do every day, they're the good guys too. We can't expect those guys that put on the badge, they can't do it all. So we have to be willing to jump in there and do some of it too. We have to be willing. Once upon a time, and still today in a lot of small towns, they still rely on the volunteers to show up to put out a house fire.
Mm.
You got to show up. As citizens, used to we were proud to be citizens because we knew that we had duty. We were, I can remember people, not looking at jury duty like, oh, God, I got to go to jury duty. I can remember hearing, oh, I got jury duty. And I can remember, guys would put on a suit and tie and go to the courthouse to sit to see if they had jury duty because it's just my turn. It's just my turn. It's my duty as a citizen. I live here. This is what I'm supposed to do. And so that's what we're supposed to do. Yeah, we pay taxes. Yeah, that's how the police officers eat and provide for their families because they get up and go to work. But we still have to embrace the fact that we're out here. We're everywhere all the time. They're everywhere some of the time. We got way more eyes than they do. We've
Right.
got to help.
Now, I wanted to ask you on these two trafficking cases you were on in Atlanta, what was the result of these? Were arrests made, and then were there convictions?
Absolutely not. No arrest. No, absolutely not.
Really?
Because there's no way to track anybody down. There was no way to track anyone because by the time that I was involved, by the time that I got to the case, everybody was, the coyotes were gone, everybody was gone. In one in particular, the only thing that was left was one dead body, and there was nothing there. The vehicles are rented in a not a third party name, but like a ninth, 10th, 11th party name. And it may the name may finally, as if you go down that rabbit hole, it may come back to a deceased person that died 2 weeks ago. They know how to cover their tracks very, very well when it comes down to stuff like that. And obviously nobody uses their real name. And a lot of times the coyote is served. He's serving as well. That's how he's paying back his servitude for getting to come to America. Is he's running these loads back and forth. So there was nothing to track. There was just nothing. So the best thing that I could do, there was one dead body in one, and there was two guys. And what I was able to do with those two guys was I was able to get them some help. And I know for a fact that they didn't in turn have to do any of their servitude stuff, if you will. So I know that one of the things that we done was I checked them. They had no criminal history, any of that stuff. So they were able to begin the process to get to be in America legally. They were able to work on getting visas and things like that in order to try to get their citizenship and things like that. So there come you sometimes you just have to jump in the middle of a storm and try to make the best from being in the middle of the storm. You have to try to make the best of it now. You can't fix what's already been destroyed. You just have to try to make the best of what you're dealt with. And that's a lot of times that's the way that is. And that's what I tried to do with those two guys. And I feel comfortable that I did that with them because I know for a fact that they had warm places to go. They had shelter, they had clothes, they had food, they were taken care of. They both were uh, they both checked out to be good guys, if you will. They weren't criminals. They didn't have criminal records in Mexico. They didn't have all of these things that a lot of times they do, where it's, you get the criminals coming across the border and things like that. These were guys that were legitimately looking for a better life, and I tried my best to influence those lives in a positive way and show that, even though this was their first taste of this country, that's not what this country is about.
Yeah, I didn't realize there were no arrests. I mean, that's hard to find out who's responsible. What about the driver of these vehicles?
There were long before by the time that I got on the cases, the drivers, what they'll do is they'll drive the trucks. A lot of times they'll drive the trucks. There'll be a meeting point. They'll drive the trucks. There'll be another truck there. They'll cut the locks off of the first truck. They'll offload off of that truck onto another, and then that truck is abandoned, and the new truck has now got the load, and it moves on to go wherever. So whatever's left behind is just left behind.
So you could potentially have a truck driver who doesn't know what his cargo is?
Oh no, they may tell you they don't know what the cargo is, but they know what they know that they're hauling something that they shouldn't be hauling. They know what the cargo is.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, but it's kind of like need to know. They're just paid to, hey, drive.
Usually the ones that don't know what they're hauling means that they don't know how much they're hauling, but that's generally more along the lines of drug mules and things like that, because they're generally paid for how much they haul. So they'll be paid to haul 100 pounds, but they may only be getting paid to haul 50 pounds. You
Right.
see what I'm saying? So, but they know that they're hauling something they shouldn't haul. But these coyotes, they know they're hauling people. They know what they're doing. Absolutely.
So I'm learning a lot here, and this is the whole point here. And I hope people watching this are learning too. When you said that some of the males who are smuggled over the border have to continue to pay a debt, and so they work on some of them on construction sites.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't realize that some of those people on sites are actually basically slaves, indentured servitude, right?
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. You don't realize those things. You, that's why when I say that human trafficking goes so much deeper and it can literally be next door to you, you don't realize a lot of times how deep human trafficking actually goes.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it can literally be next door, and you may literally be seeing them all the time.
Now, the people who are, and yeah, it is difficult to talk about this. The
Mhm.
people, adults and children who are smuggled for sex. I hate to say it, but there's consumers of that in this country,
Mhm.
and they're the ones motivating this business.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely.
And it's people who engage in it themselves, and there's other people who film it and
Mhm.
put it online for the entertainment, quote unquote, of
Right.
other.
Right.
So really, the clients can be from all over the world. You could have somebody on some other part of the planet watching,
Right.
something on the dark web that was made here.
Right. Right. And again, here we go into the whole back once again. We're talking about a sickness of the heart. We're
Right.
talking about a sickness of the heart, because I have always tried my best to understand another person's point of view by placing myself into their position. Try as I may, there are some positions that I just can't get my mind to get into. I just can't There's some things that I just cannot understand, and that's definitely one of them. I just can't. I just can't. I just can't understand how an adult could look at a child in that way. It just doesn't enter into my head. I I don't understand. That's that's a sickness of our heart.
Hmm.
The ability to own and sell another person is a sickness of the heart. Um, I've worked case. I had a case one time that where a lady was trafficking um, was selling was prostituting her own children. She had a little girl and a little boy, and she was prostituting her own children. So again, a reasonable, prudent person hears that, and we think, how could that possibly even be? A mom hears me say that, and they're like, how could that possibly even be? The only way that I can, and I'm not rationalizing, the only way that I can conceive it in my mind is that they're not thinking with a rational and prudent mindset. They just don't have the necessary equipment, whether it be in the head or in the heart. They don't have the necessary equipment.
That's a tough one, especially a mother of her own children. I
Yeah,
mean, you have an incredible primal bond between mothers and their
yeah,
own children,
yeah.
and just, there must be some kind of extreme, I don't know, poverty or extreme debt that she had, or just a sickness, or all of the above.
You know, Uh, and I could go on. I could go on. I don't want to. I don't want to. I don't think it's necessary, to be honest with you, to keep going on with the stories, because it. I feel like that we've. I feel like I've made the point why it's so important. But this was literally, this instance that I'm talking about was literally in an apartment, and the people that lived above them had no idea. Of course, the people that lived beside them had no idea. The people that lived behind them had no idea. So when I say it's literally could be next door, it could literally be next door. You have to, we have to watch out for each other.
Hmm.
As human beings, we have to watch out for each other. We have to we we have to love each other. We have to. There's a better way. There's a better way. And again, we're not. People in general are good. People are in general are good. I want to make sure that the listeners know that. I'm talking about instances that were horrible, horrible instances. But people in general, for the most part, are good. We really are. Most people want to help. Most people want to do good. Most people want to will show up and help, which is evident. Which is evident anytime that there is uh, you know the hurricanes and the floods that just happened in North Carolina, Tennessee, and Georgia. People showed up, and they're still there. They're there rebuilding entire towns. And when I say rebuilding the entire town, I mean from literally from dirt. Like, there were towns that were completely washed off the map, to where there was nothing left. No road, no signs of the roads, no signs of the building, nothing. And people have showed up with expecting nothing in return other than to help people survive and live. Um, it's going to happen again in LA. It's going to happen again in LA. And I don't know. I don't know when we're going to air, but I normally don't get political and say this, but there's so many people that I see them on social media and all this other stuff, like everybody else. And I try not to be influenced by social media and things, but don't two wrongs don't make a right. Just because just because just because I tell you that you hate me shouldn't mean that you tell me that just because I tell you that I hate you doesn't mean that you should tell me that vice versa. You should give it back. It's okay. It doesn't matter. I can't stand to see people say, I've seen it a couple of times on social media. Well, the folks in LA are getting what they deserve for saying the stuff that they've said about the Southeast and North Carolina. They didn't help them. Why should they be getting helped in LA? That's not. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who said what about anything. You're Americans. They're fellow human beings. If you can help them, help them. Go and help them. Put your hands out. Help them. Do what you can to help. Love them. Put your arms out. Wrap your arms around them. Tell them you love them. It's okay. It doesn't matter. It's not our jobs to judge each other. It's our jobs to love each other.
Well, I think statement and a good to wrap this up, put a cap on it.
Yeah, man. Absolutely.
And you just reminded me of something. I used to live in Los Angeles many years ago, and there's a situation. I was sitting in my car parked in West Hollywood somewhere, and at a bus stop, I saw a guy and a girl, young guy and a girl, and the guy had a hold of the girl's belt, like he was holding her belt, so she couldn't move. She wasn't strong enough to pull away from him. And she was kind of crying and kind of scared and looking like, how do I get away from this guy who wouldn't let her go? And I found some police officers a block away and told them about it. And then they went and they talked to the guy. They calmed it down. He let go, and they went their separate ways.
Yeah.
And on one point, it's not my business to intervene in other people's lives. You live your life, I live mine. But if I see a situation where someone might be about to be hurt or injured or is terrified, yeah, I'm going to say something. And the cop said, hey, we're here to help each other.
That's right. So that's absolutely right. So this, I had people that would apologize, and I'm like, hey, you know what? I'm here. That's what I'm here for. That's what I'm here for this whole shift for. That's why I'm here. And the guys that pin that badge on and raise their hand and swear that they're there to help, if that's not really why you're there, you take the badge off and lay it down. If it never bothered me to help somebody. And then here's the next thing is if that was my daughter, I would be so grateful to you for helping her put an end to that. If that was my mom, thank you for stopping that, because she was scared. If that was my son, if that was my dad, we tend to think so many times as men, we tend to think that those things don't happen to other men, but they do regularly. And we that was the right thing to do. That was the right thing to do. I commend you for one, for having the desire to help someone, and two, for having the guts to do it, and three, for doing it properly, because you did it properly. You didn't create another victim. You didn't create another victim of you or him. She was already a victim, and you didn't create another victim by going over and trying to interject yourself into that situation that was already bad. You found two guys that had the authority and the ability. Not that you didn't have the ability to take care of the situation, Carl, but I'm saying that these guys, that's what they're there for. You went and you handled it appropriately. So I see that's what makes us better as a society. That's what makes us better.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, I am an optimist, and I think we can make things better, even if one person is helped by
absolutely
listening to this discussion, or picks up the phone and calls on something they saw, or someone sees the movie and is motivated to help in some way. It's all worth it.
Man, if you only save one person, if you change one life, you're good.
Yeah.
Your purpose has been served. Absolutely.
I could talk to you for hours, Joey.
Me too. Me too.
Yeah.
It's truly been a pleasure. Thank you so much, Carl. And make sure you guys go watch the movie when it's available. Men of Law. It is a fantastic story. Man, so adequately acted. By the way, I mean the acting was fantastic. The stuff that I got to see on playback, it was captured so well, and it was a really fun project to make. The story, it was really well written. The locations were fun to shoot in. It was. I can't wait to see the final product. I can't wait to see it.
Yeah. Well, same here.
Yeah,
It was a joy working with you, Joey, and the
my
movie's
pleasure.
in post-production for those of you who don't know, and hopefully will come out later this year. So stay tuned, and
Awesome.
we'll let you know. So thank you, Joey. I appreciate it.
Thank you, buddy.
You take care.
You too.